All right, so let's take a look at Robert Frank's experiments using the prisoner's dilemma. So he had subjects come into the lab, and they would be grouped into three. So here's a triad right here. Each subject was told that they're going to play one round of the prisoner's dilemma game with each of the other two in the triad, right? It's for real money, and they will have no knowledge of what the others decide to do. Okay, they will simply get their payoff at the end when the results are tabulated. But more than this, Frank was interested in setting up different pre-game interactions between the triads. So in some of the cases, the individuals would get to meet for a certain length of time and be allowed to discuss certain things, and in other conditions of the experiment, there were restrictions on that. So let's take a look at the conditions in this experiment. There were three conditions in the experiment. In the unlimited one, the pre-game meeting period was 30 minutes. So the three individuals would get to meet for 30 minutes, right? And they had complete freedom of communication. They could make promises to each other, right? They could say to each other, all right, I'm definitely going to cooperate, right? So let's all cooperate and we can maximize our collective payoff there, right? So that was the unlimited condition. In the intermediate condition, they could meet up to 30 minutes, but promises were not permitted. Otherwise, they could talk about the weather or sports or whatever. They simply couldn't make promises about how they were going to decide in the game. In the limited condition, a shorter duration of time to meet the other two, and communication about the game not permitted. Right? So, in the intermediate one, you couldn't make a promise about how you were going to decide, but you could talk about the game. You just couldn't make the promise. Here, you couldn't even talk about the game, right? You had to talk about the weather or sports or whatever. Okay, now after the communication sessions, right, then the subjects were asked to make their decision, either to cooperate or defect, and they were also asked to predict the decisions of the other two players and to give confidence levels for those. Okay, so that's the data. Each subject then, Frank was recording whether they're going to cooperate or defect, the basic decision in the game, and then making predictions about what each player thinks the others will do and how confident are they. Let's take a look. The limited, intermediate, unlimited. In the unlimited communication group, right, the darker bar is the actual. This is percent cooperative responses, 73.7% cooperate. Pretty high rate of cooperation. Notice what happens as communication goes down, as there's less and less communication, right? So in the unlimited communication, higher levels of cooperation than in the intermediate or the limited. Now that supports this idea that by signaling each other, either just getting to know them a little bit more or directly, explicitly telling others, yes, I will cooperate or whatever, that will facilitate cooperation. Now, it's also interesting to note that the predicted levels of cooperation, in a sense, track the actual play by each participant. So, and in fact, overshoots in each case. So there was a little bit more of an expectation of cooperation on the part of the others than actually happened. But still we see this bar is higher than that bar. So in other words, these folks predicted the others would cooperate, and they themselves did. But when there was less communication, the actual cooperation decreased, but so did the prediction that the others would decrease. At least these two are less than that one. So to summarize this data here, figure 2.2, we can say it this way. There's greater communication led to increased cooperation, right? And that participants overestimated the level of cooperation. Players used the same strategy that they predicted the other would use. And this wasn't shown in the graph, but they broke it down by gender. Females did show higher rates of cooperation than males, 78% versus 66%. Now, what about construal? Remember, the idea of construal is this idea of interpreting the situation. What's the nature of the situation? Why do people differ in their decision to cooperate or defect, right? And one hypothesis would be perhaps they construe the game differently. And here Frank was interested in economics training. Could training in economics influence how a subject construes the game? You see, you could look at this prisoner's dilemma game as a competitive game, right? Or a cooperative game. And if you see it as a cooperative game, if you're kind of coming into the game and you construe the game as a game of cooperation, well, then you might be more tempted to cooperate. If you construe the game as a game about competition and so on, then defection might be your strategy. So he was interested in whether training in economics, literally, going to college, taking economics courses, or you know, it doesn't have to be college, but more exposure to economic thinking, whether that was influencing maybe how people were construing the game, and therefore what choice they would make to cooperate or defect. So let's take a look. He did this again with college samples. So here we have defection and cooperation rates, and we have economists and non-economists, right? And these can be professional economists, or he'll also be studying economics majors in college. We'll take a look. So cooperation is the dark bar. For economists, the cooperation 39.6. Non-economists, cooperation 61.2. For the economists, defection 60%. For the non-economists, defection 39%, right? It's basically flipped. The pattern of bars is flipped. So there seems to be something about being an economist or economics training that is correlated to a strategy in this prisoner's dilemma game, right? Defection is a more likely strategy if you're an economist than a non-economist. Studying economics. Does studying economics inhibit cooperation, right? Does exposure to the self-interest model influence rates of cooperation? So these are some of the questions that Frank was interested in pursuing in these experiments. When allowed to communicate, economics majors show similar behavior as non-economic majors, right? So when allowed to communicate. So if you're allowed to, you know, make promises or talk about the game, you know, establish some trust, you know, you might say, then you're going to get similar behaviors as the non-economists. But when not allowed to communicate, econ majors more often construed the game in self-interested terms. They more often cited the rules of the game when giving reasons for their choices. Non-econ majors more often mentioned their feelings for their partner or aspects of human nature. Right? So he was detecting a difference in the way that the different majors were construing the game based on the reasons they gave for their choices. Let's take a look. Let's see, this one compared to the previous one here. This is for the sample as a whole, and here we have the unlimited subsample. So this is promises permitted. So this is when they have a maximum communication here. And take a look. We see cooperation here. Economists and non-economists, they both show high levels of cooperation in the unlimited subsample, right? That particular condition of the experiment. For the no promises subsample, right, that condition of the experiment, the defection rate for the economists is significantly higher than the defection rate for the non-economists. Cooperation rates higher for the non-economists than the economists. Okay, so these are econ majors, non-econ majors, and again, one interpretation of this result is that the econ majors are construing the game. When you're not allowed to make any promises, no communication, the econ majors are construing the game as a game of sort of self-interest. What decision is going to promote your self-interest the most? Whereas the non-econ majors are construing the game in terms of sort of cooperation or feeling, you know, how they would feel, you know, to either cooperate or defect with or against the other one. and this is influencing their decisions to either cooperate or defect. So the non-econ majors are thinking about the other a little bit more, right, according to what they're saying anyway as they make their decision, than the econ majors.